If you spent 20, 30 years in a corporate job, you think you know what loyalty buys. You don't. I know because I gave Meridian Corp 30 years of my life, and they handed me a severance packet and a glance at a wristwatch. Then I quit at 57 just to remember what breathing felt like without a badge around my neck. Nobody tells you this. Your cubicle was never actually locked. You can stand up and leave. Most people forget their legs still know the way out, and their mind still works without permission. I didn't forget. I'm going to show you exactly what I saw in those glass hallways before I walked. My boss's name is Robert. He's 41. He sat across from me in a glass-walled conference room, the same room where I'd pitched the client retention system that saved them $2.1 million in 2017. And he slid a severance packet across the table. Voluntary separation program. 2 weeks pay for every year of service, capped at 26 weeks. I looked at him. He looked at his watch. That was 47 days before I left forever. He got my position, my client list. The corner office I was promised in 2021. He got it because of a reorganization email that arrived on a Tuesday at 9:23 p.m. And I was moved to cubicle 4B, the one by the elevator that smelled like burnt coffee and toner, 45 steps from the rest of my team, like I was already gone. I want you to understand something. I'm 57 years old. I know exactly what year it is. I remember the cold sweat I felt reading that severance packet with eyes that couldn't quite focus. I remember every one of those 47 days, and I could feel myself becoming invisible the whole time I was in there. Here's what you need to know. You can't just walk out of a place like that without consequences. There's a non-compete. There's a clawback clause on unvested stock. There's a protocol. HR gets called. Computers get wiped. They don't call it punishment, but it sure isn't freedom either. I knew all of this, so I planned my exit carefully. I requested a formal meeting. I gathered my personal belongings, my files, Angela's photograph, and the original strategy binder, the one Robert had claimed he wrote, and I walked out with my head up, like I owned the place. Because for 30 years, I had been acting like I did. That was 6 months ago. I now run a small consultancy out of a converted garage in Crestwood with a man named Marcus. He's 60. He was laid off from Meridian the year before me, after 27 years. The neighbors have decided we're just two old guys, playing office. They don't know. They see a beige garage and write their own story. Well, here's the real one. The boss who took my corner office hasn't called in 4 months. The man who took me in, Marcus, has known me for 25 years. Angela told me something before she passed that I've never forgotten. You built their bridges for 3 decades, she used to say. Real bridges, the kind that hold revenue. But you never did build an exit plan for yourself. She wasn't wrong. We were married 29 years. She went quietly, in a hospital bed, the way nobody hopes to go. I called Robert first. He called HR first, then legal, then blocked my number. I didn't know that at the time. I found out later, the way you find out most corporate truths, far too late to do anything about it. Part 3, Cubicle 4B. I want you to picture it. Not the version in the Glassdoor photos, with natural light and collaborative energy. The real version. A gray fabric half wall that shuttered every time the elevator opened. A monitor still logged into Robert's account because IT never reassigned it. A shared stapler that someone took on Wednesdays. Every morning at 8:00 a.m., a younger woman named Jessica knocked on the partition. Good morning, sir. Need anything? Jessica was kind. I want to be clear about that. Almost everyone there was kind. And that was almost the worst part, because corporate kindness without recognition is just HR compliance. I watched the people around me stop caring, not because they had nothing to contribute, but because nobody was counting their years anymore. And one thing surprised me, more than I expected. There was a woman, Diane, project manager for 33 years. Ran the team that built the legacy system half the company still used. Every afternoon she'd sit in the break room and rearrange the sugar packets like they were Gantt charts. I asked her one day what she was doing. Organizing, she said. For what? She looked at me. Doesn't matter. I still know how. That was the moment I understood what that building actually was. It wasn't a workplace. It was a parking garage for people whose companies had run out of road. I started keeping a notebook. Small blue one fit right in my jacket pocket. Every day I wrote the date, the revenue we brought in before I was sidelined, and one thing I noticed. I'm not a sentimental man. That wasn't the point. I needed proof. Proof that I was still sharp, still valuable, still present in this world. On day 12, Robert walked past my cube without looking. On day 14, the severance deadline was extended. They were trying to push me out without triggering legal protections for employees. I'd looked it up on a library computer during lunch. On day 31, I started watching the calendar, the way an auditor watches accounts payable for errors. I was looking for my moment. The badge still worked. Nobody looked up. On day 47, I stopped telling myself I was just planning. Part 4, I found Marcus at a diner on St. John, Vincent Avenue. He'd been consulting out of his garage for 18 months, barely scraping by. I'd known him since the Chicago project in '98. We'd shared a cubicle wall for 4 years. He ordered coffee black, same as always. How's the pension? He asked. Hobbit, I said. How's the severance? Stolen. Silence. He poured sugar into his cup, stirred it 9 times. I need someone to handle the accounts while I focus on sales, he said finally. Can you still build a P&L from scratch? I've been building P&Ls since before Excel had a spell check. He laughed. I hadn't heard that sound in nearly a decade. When can you start? He asked. I already have. What Marcus told me weeks later was that he'd been sitting in that garage for 6 months after his wife left, barely able to make the mortgage. He had $580 in checking, and a son in his sophomore year at State who thought Dad was just taking a break. He needed clients. I needed a reason to wake up. Neither of us expected what came after. That first morning in the garage, I set up a folding table and a coffee maker from the thrift store. We had one client, a small logistics firm, that paid $1,500 a month. We split the work without a contract. The neighbors still talk. A man named Greg from across the street asked Marcus directly if we were running some kind of tax scam. Marcus told him that I manage my own finances, that I still consult for 2 former Meridian clients who followed me, that I replaced the garage door opener myself last Sunday, and that I'd read the entire SBA loan guidelines the night before. Twice. Robert called last month. My former boss, first time in 4 months. Asked how I was doing. Well, I told him. He asked what I was working on. Crestwood Advisory, I said. With who? With my partner. We're closing a contract with a medical supply company. I'm mentoring his son on the side. Kid's got a mind for finance. A long pause. We should talk, Robert said. I have to go, I told him. My partner's son is waiting for a session on balance sheets. I hung up. I'm 57 years old. I wake up every morning in a garage I converted into an office I own. I charge what I want to charge. I have coffee with a man who sees me as the strategist Meridian forgot they had. I have a 19-year-old who texts me accounting questions on Sundays and calls me uncle. Angela's photograph is on my desk. Same as always, just a different desk. The cruelest thing about corporate loyalty isn't the paycheck stopping. It's finding out which people in your network were truly invested in you and which ones were just waiting for your head count to become a budget cut. I survived 30 years building their bridges, but I'm not building anyone else's empire anymore. I'm building my own, one client at a time, remembering what it feels like to be the architect of my own days again. I'm 57, and every single one of those days now belongs to me.